We spoke about this earlier in the week. This Ozempic
Yeah.
red flag, perhaps. You know,
Yeah.
we've been hearing nothing but positive things about the semaglutide drugs, Wegovy, Ozempic, Mounjaro, those
Sure.
kinds of things. But there's apparently a link between folks who have, with patients who have type 2 diabetes, loss of sight, blindness, okay, with regard to these drugs. So
Yeah.
there's a lawsuit, and we're going to be speaking with a couple of attorneys who are involved in this lawsuit. So
That's where we're going to start off, I believe.
that's how we're starting off. Do we have Grace and Sarah on the line? Hi.
Hey.
Good morning.
Thanks for
Okay.
joining the show. Appreciate it.
So, I hope you're doing good. Can you guys hear us?
Yeah.
We
Okay,
can.
you got
Thank
it.
you
All
for
right.
having us.
Okay, let's dig in here. Ozempic and other GLP-1 medications have shot up in popularity over the last couple of years, with millions of Americans taking the drugs to treat both type 2 diabetes and for weight loss. But there's a new lawsuit that alleges the drug can cause serious eye problems and vision loss, specifically the rare eye disorder. Do you know how to pronounce this? Naion. And we'll just-
Nyan?
perhaps?
Nyan.
I'm sure.
Nyan.
Okay.
The patients weren't properly informed, so we have two attorneys joining us, as we just mentioned, that are part of the litigation. Sarah Couch and Grace Chandler with Motley Rice, LLC. So let's get into this. What have you found that links these semaglutide drugs with this rare eye disorder?
Yeah, so I'll start. First, thank you so much for having us. We think this is a really important to get out to everyone, potential patients and consumers. There was a science article that was published last year showing a marked increase in Nyan, which my associate Grace here always calls eye stroke, which is a lot easier to understand because it's like your eye has a stroke and you can no longer see. It's very serious and it's typically irreversible. And it showed a marked increase of eye strokes in individuals who are on semaglutide. And since then, there have been multiple publications that have replicated these results. And so it's quite concerning. And we think people need to know, particularly because if you do lose vision, it's typically in one eye, but if you stay on the medication, you're putting yourself at risk of loss of vision in both eyes.
Has that happened? Has there been a patient that has lost eyesight in both eyes?
Yes.
Yes. So
Wow.
we represent clients who have filed currently in state court, New Jersey, alleging that their use of Ozempic, semaglutide, or Wegovy has caused them this condition. And as a result, some have only lost vision in one eye and then stopped the drug, but others kept on the drug and lost vision in both eyes.
Can you guys real quick clarify whether this lawsuit has to do with the Nyan itself and the link there, or if the lawsuit has to do with whether these patients were properly informed about the acknowledged risk of losing your sight?
Well, it's both, right?
Okay.
So we are making allegations that this drug had a connection, their use of this drug had a connection to the condition that they now have. But we also believe that this company and this drug should have a warning on it for this condition.
So there isn't a warning on it now at all. Are they aware of the issue? Were they aware before they released this drug?
That's right. So currently there is no FDA required warning on this. However, I think if we look over to Europe and our European counterparts, the EMA has recommended to Novo Nordisk, who's the manufacturer of Ozempic, that they require a warning for this risk because while it is still considered rare, it is quite severe and patients need to be informed. And in fact, the fact that some patients continue using the drug and they put their other eye at risk of eye loss indicates that both physicians and patients aren't making the association between this drug and the risk of eye loss.
We have just reported, I believe earlier this week, that these drugs are so popular now, the semaglutide drugs, that 1 in 10 Americans or something astounding like that are now on them. Can one of you tell us about what some of your clients have experienced here? Okay, so they're doing the shot. What happens from there? Is this a gradual thing? Is there pain involved? Do they suddenly get, like temporary loss of sight in one eye? How does it all play out?
It's sudden. It is quite literally you wake up and all of a sudden you can't see out of one eye. So it is a sudden, it is painless. And so, yeah, that in talking to our clients, that's their experience is that one day they wake up and they can't see out of one eye. Oftentimes it presents, a lot of people think blindness is just black. It actually, there is a, certain scale that ophthalmologists have for what legal blindness is, but it is really severely blurred vision. It could be black dots that surround enough of one eye that constitutes blindness, but it is sudden and it is painless.
So talking about how 1 in 10 Americans are on this drug, are there any specific people, different health, maybe previous health issues that would make them more susceptible to the blindness, or should everyone who's taking Ozempic maybe consider getting off because of this issue?
So that's a great question. We know that there are certain risk factors that can predispose you, including being diabetic or having high blood pressure. But I think that the science, while it is establishing the risk factor, is still emerging in all of the mechanics and risk factors, and that everyone, given the severity of the consequences of losing your eyesight, should consider this when they are deciding whether this is the optimal treatment for them. And they should have the ability to decide that by being informed about the true nature of the risk.
I want to point out that we have reached out to Ozempic for a comment on this. I will say that to other outlets, the manufacturers of Ozempic have said that they list changes in vision as a possible side effect. I do want to read a little more of their statement before we chime back into the conversation. As part of our routine safety review process, we have ongoing discussions with regulators regarding potential safety topics, and we will continue to review data, including any data regarding ophthalmic issues. So that's all we know at this point from the company itself. Changes in vision, though, does that go far enough to describe this as potential side effect of changes in vision?
We don't think so. We think that the blindness that we're talking about here and that our clients are experiencing is not a side effect. It's a lifelong complication. Grace was just telling me about how one of our clients, in order to maneuver around his home, they have to have ridges on surfaces so that they can feel, how to start the microwave, and they can learn to modify their lifestyle. And so to us, it's very severe, and it goes well beyond. I don't think most patients or consumers, when they hear changes in vision, are going to associate with the lifelong complications of severe vision loss.
So speaking of side effects, with all of these people, again, taking this drug, I'm sure we're going to see more. Have you heard of anything else aside from the blindness that people are complaining about as a side effect of these drugs?
Yes. So there are additional vision problems that have arisen. There was a new study that came out within the last few weeks that discussed other potential vision complications. In addition, there are lawsuits that have been filed, over 2,000, alleging different complications of intestinal blockage and gastroparesis, all which are severe, have required hospitalization, surgery, and some have resulted, unfortunately, in death.
Do you guys have any numbers at this point in the game of how many American Ozempic or semaglutide users have suffered vision loss or changes in vision?
That's a great question. The FDA keeps track of adverse event reports that the company has to report to them. So we do have some numbers we can look up that go specifically towards vision loss and vision issues. The way that database works, it's hard to know exactly how many have this condition. But it's something that we are tracking, and obviously we hope the company is tracking as well. And we hope to discover that as part of this litigation, that once we get information from the company, we'll be able to actually find out how many people have complained about this to the company.
But for now, how many complainants or plaintiffs are involved in your lawsuit specifically?
So there's 21 that are filed in state court in New Jersey alleging the NION, as a result of the use of Ozempic.
And their experiences have all been pretty similar, would you say?
It's similar in the sense that they they all have this condition to some degree. Like I said, it usually starts in one eye. So some only have it in one eye, whereas some it's progressed to both. But yes.
So what's the next step in your lawsuit, and what are you hoping comes from this?
So what we're hoping comes from this is that the manufacturers will choose to act and inform patients and physicians of the true risk of the product. Based on our experience in litigating pharmaceutical claims, the manufacturer is always the one that has the most information about the adverse events and the risks that are reported to them. The next step is there's been an MCL, or a multi-county litigation petition, filed in New Jersey. We're waiting on the judge to rule. If they rule accordingly, it'll be consolidated and we'll proceed forward with discovery on these specific claims.
So right now, do you guys have counterparts in other states? You mentioned, your 2021 plaintiffs in the state of New Jersey. Paint a picture for the landscape of what this could become.
Yes, for sure. So there are currently other vision loss claims that have been filed in various state courts. The Novo Nordisk, the manufacturer, is headquartered in New Jersey, and we think for a lot of reasons that makes sense as where we need to centralize the claims. And we are working with a host of co-counsel across the country to centralize the litigation there. So I would anticipate that is where the primary NION cases will proceed forward, and it'll run parallel to the MDL claims that are already existing in Pennsylvania.
So you mentioned the European counterpart to the FDA recommending that this is on the label of warning to consumers. Do you think that the United States is going to partner up with the European side of the FDA and kind of come together as an action against these drugs?
So we do know that the FDA is looking into this. So what typically happens is that the EMA, the European Medicines Agency, might be a little ahead. But we have every reason to believe that the FDA will offer the same recommendation. But yeah, so right now the FDA is, I believe, in process of looking into this in the same way that the European Medicines Agency did.
How unusual is this in terms of disclosing the potential side effects? Because it gets made fun of a lot when you see commercials, for example, for different drugs. You'll see like slow motion, a couple enjoying their day, but then underneath it, you'll hear the voice track saying, may cause blah, blah, blah.
You could die.
You could, and then and then eventually they get to or death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like the American public is used to seeing these like cover all disclaimers in the advertising. How unusual is it for something this major to not be out front like we've seen in so many other advertisements for so many other medications?
Well, unfortunately, in my almost 15 years of litigating against pharmaceutical companies, I would say that this is more of a pattern in practice than an uncommon occurrence. I will say that I think we're not here to try to wave red herrings or flags, but we do think that if there is something that is a severe lifelong complication and not just a side effect that's transient in nature and likely to go away, that people need to be informed even if that overall risk is rare. And we know based on the science that some people are more susceptible, but unfortunately there's no magic test we can do right now or a physician can offer to know who. So the best we can do is to inform patients and physicians so that they can do a full risk-benefit analysis.
Have you ever seen in your experience, let's say we're talking to people who use Ozempic and it's really changed their life for the better and maybe they don't want to get off this drug. Have you ever seen when there's an issue like this that comes up that the manufacturer can take it back, find out why this is happening, fix it, and then re-release the drug?
I would not say re-release the drug. So typically what happens is the drug is helping a certain population of individuals, and what they realize is that there's another population that is more susceptible to the risk. And so for a lot of reasons, for example, we don't advise a lot of drugs in pregnant women, right? Because we know there's additional risk to the growing, developing baby. And so I would anticipate what would more likely happen is they would say, we would not recommend this drug and these populations, whether it's based upon age, diabetic, some preconditions, because the risk of blindness outweighs the benefit of the drug. Because don't forget, most people stop using these drugs. And they're not a miracle. They don't change your metabolism. They don't change the way your brain works permanently. If you stop using it, you lose the benefits. And most people stop using it within 1 year.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Grace Chandler and Sarah Couch, thank you very much for getting us updated on the lawsuit that's unfolding here. We appreciate your time. Keep us posted.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right.
Thank
We
you.